Halo is a setting with a hell of a lot going on. Humanity is trapped in a forever war with a group of religious fanatics composed of like 80 different races who are only at war with humanity because they're a plot hole in their religion, which eventually spirals into a religious schism and Cortana Halo becoming a god. Wait, what? See, that was something called the narrative hook to get you to watch more of the video. I will now keep you in suspense for the rest of its runtime to see if I ever bring it up again, and when I inevitably don't, you can leave an angry comment which I will farm engagement off of. 343 did the same thing, so really if you think about it, I'm just following in their footsteps. Halo is not like, say, StarCraft, where the plot focuses on the big strategic masterminds and the leaders of every faction. Your command structure is addressed, and there's characters like Admiral Hood, but Hood is as much of a side character as the physics of the universe can allow him to be. Halo keeps its story centered around the file and rank soldier, not the higher-up RTS players. Similar to, say, Republic Commando, you do play as genetically enhanced soldiers relative to the rest of the stock, but you're still just a soldier. Admittedly, the Bungie games focus on the two most canonically overpowered Spartans in the entire universe, but an effort is made, especially in Halo 3 and Halo Reach, to keep the focus off of you and onto the world and your allies. Halo 3 does this by having a rebellion of the elites, a race of soldiers, be a major plot point with a lot of focus, and Reach does this by introducing you to a team and then gradually killing them off one by one, with the backdrop of the entire game being that everything is absolutely and totally screwed and only days or weeks out from being incinerated. Now you might be asking me, why aren't you talking about ODST? And it's cause, well, these are the same. In lore, Spartans are genetically engineered super soldiers, and these guys are just soldiers. So playing as them has some seriously cool gameplay ramifications. You're in lighter armor and relegated to using small arms, so you trade power in return for mobility, and due to your non-regeneratable health, you have to outsmart your Oh. No, actually, they play the exact same. Noble 6 feels the exact same to play as the Rook. Sure, it doesn't make the shield noise, but it's still the same thing. In previous games, ODSTs do make appearances, and they're practically completely worthless. Having them play identically to Spartans is laughable, and it's sad because if the concept were properly fleshed out, it would be really cool. A climax to a mission could be fighting a handful of elites instead of them being a regular enemy. In ODST, coming across a pack of hunters should be on par with coming across Darth Vader in Fallen Order, but of course they're just as worthless as always. This is kind of hard to do though, because the effectiveness of a bullet does not change based on the genes of who fired it. You'd have to adjust the balance via ammo scarcity, weapon handling, and AI rather than enemy stats to preserve guns not arbitrarily being worse when wielded by a Marine rather than a Spartan. It's definitely not impossible, and to be honest, I was a little baffled when I realized ODSTs are capable of tearing these things off their bipods and able to be wielded like they were Spartans. Maybe just get rid of that? In fact, there actually is a good depiction of a squad of ODSTs going up against an elite and having it be a balanced fight. It's in a cutscene of Halo's 2 remake that most people have probably never seen. Most of the solid depictions of Marines in the Halo universe is left to the marketing and the cutscenes. A couple looks at the Halo Wars cinematics will teach you that much. There are some victories, but it's mostly defeat, loss, and more death. In Halo War's best cinematic, Nolan North is only able to beat the Arbiter because he drops a fucking nuclear payload on him first and then falls back to using weaponized toxic masculinity after having his ass beat.
Look me in the eye and say that.
As you wish. My face will be the last thing your pathetic eyes ever see.
On top of that, Halo 3's Believe marketing campaign was some of the most well-received marketing the industry has ever produced. And that's because it focused on the horrific lives of the Marines and treated them like fallible people and not Spartans with different armor. Now, there is always the entirely valid gameplay argument that it would have been too much work to remake the entire sandbox from scratch, and honestly, you're probably right. ODST is already a beloved game because even if realistically you're playing a group of Spartans, it does a good job of lying and acting like you're less powerful via lower stakes plot and smaller scope. I still think the idea of a Halo game actually centered around being a lower rank UNSC soldier would be novel if it had gameplay changes. If you just rehash ODST again, you might as well save yourself the trouble and just use my difficulty rationale instead. As for the Halo games after 3 that have actually been made, oh boy, have they been great. A significant reason that 343's games have fallen flat, past the horrible multiplayer, the god-awful art design, dwarfing the number of enemy types, the lack of split screen, the lack of innovation, past all of that, is the atrocious writing. I'm not sure how many people have read the books, but people often joke about speedruns of Halo games being in the canon version of Chief, and that's pretty much not even a joke, that's just straight up how he's portrayed in them. There's this incredibly infamous fight in Halo 5 which is choreographed like a 5th grade rendition of Macbeth, with a hilarious misunderstanding of Chief as a character. This kid who was grown from birth to be the savior of humanity gets beaten up by a random government assassin in a fistfight. That's on par with a space marine somehow managing to take a knock from a guardsman's right hook. Halo 4, 5, and Infinite focus on Chief being kind of a Gary Stew, mostly on his lonesome in places far away from anywhere that's relevant. The original trilogy had a very simple and easily understandable plot. Weird, gangly aliens want humans dead, humans want to not be dead, kick alien ass, and stop genocide. The plots of 4, 5, and even Infinite feel so convoluted with tons of deep lore stuff that only really big lore nerds would care about, while simultaneously pissing off fans of said lore by retconning stuff that was set up for a fucking decade. I have no idea who this was even aimed at apart from the writers themselves. Chief used to just be a really good soldier, and the game's focused on him saving the universe by being good at his job.
Chief told me once that no soldier should be honored for doing what is expected.
Now it's a complicated emotional tale about a weirdly romantically tense dating sim between a cracked green brick with morphing armor and a genocidal AI. Marathon wasn't about dating Durandal. Okay, sorry, back on topic. ODST and Reach have weirdly similar plots. You are a mostly mute, faceless protagonist, you join a team who is a man down and drop with them to achieve a mostly obscured and unknown goal, people won't stop taking their fucking helmets off in the middle of war zones, and your goal is eventually revealed practically last minute by a character who disappeared for half of the game to be escorting a valuable supercomputer off planet to help win the war. I like Reach's more though, because it feels like a much more personal story. You don't know Noble Team for very long, but you do have enough time with each member for their deaths to feel impactful, and for its length each death is paced out basically perfectly. Obviously this is going to be subjective, but ODST's characters and nor plot didn't stick with me that much. Character designs are pretty boring and lack the distinctive colors and designs of those of Noble Team. If everyone had been designed to look as distinct as Dutch, I think I would have liked them a lot more. Also, why do they keep taking their goddamn helmets off? The ODST visor can literally be made transparent. I don't need or want to see Buck's face that looks like a PS2 rendition of a litter box. People remember Emil because he looks like a Genji main, and frankly, I don't want to see what's underneath. That being said, I don't think Noble Team's entire execution is without flaw. Like, Carter being randomly injured at the start of a cutscene felt a little bit out of place, but his death was sufficiently cool enough to justify it.
I've got the map.
Solid copy. Hit 'em on, boys.
You're on your own, Noble. Carter out.
There's also some questionable writing choices like, hey guys, let's fly through this EMP field. Whoops, the crew is dead. But ultimately it's more funny than profoundly stupid. I also like Noble 6. Like, a lot. There are 3 points which work very well in their favor. Being given lots of screen time, basing their looks on your custom character, and the cinematography. Noble 6 is inherently very customizable, and thus is pretty easy to get attached. I wish they spoke a little bit more than the basic confirmations, but it works for the game.
Bad news is, time is fried. I'm gonna have to fire it manually.
That's a one-way trip.
We all make it sooner or later.
The feminine voice actor is also a little bit of a letdown, and she lacks the gravitas of a solid feminine character, like...
Gotta get the hell out of here!
Negative. I have the gun.
Okay, I just started writing down examples, and then I realized I was writing down all of Apex Legends' cast. I suppose the lesson here is that if you want good voice work in your project, hire JB Blanc. Dude can direct, act, and is a fucking stellar voice actor.
Paying tribute won't save you.
Reach actually has really good cinematography, which is fucking rare for video games. Most of the time in games, and generally in media, you can expect shot reverse shot endlessly, but here you get an interesting mix of handheld cams, static shots, and first-person bits. The ending to Lone Wolf wouldn't be anywhere near as memorable or poignant without the cinematography choices, and I honestly don't think I can do justice to how good of a scene it is.
We're a team. That bomb won't stop, stays behind. Tell him to make it count.
Priority 1.
Carter out. I'm ready! How about you?
Good luck to you, Spike.
This video has exclusively focused on the UNSC, but I also think the Covenant are exceptionally well fleshed out. They have like a billion different ranks, and a story told in any form, whether it be a book, movie, TV show, or game, centered around, say, an elite who climbs in power to a very prestigious rank and then has to turn on his former masters after he realizes they're trying to do a genocide, would work just as well as a UNSC story. Fuck this fucking game.